Kevin Champeny. He is an artist who, what does it say about the town when the local artist, his big piece of work is a giant edible? Is that what that is?
Kind of looks like it, but...
Is this your work?
Yeah.
Okay. Today on the truck. Today on the Tom Kelly Show, we talk to Kevin Champeny. He is a mosaic artist who deals with tangible materials. It's art, and then you get close, it's the mosaic, blah, blah, blah. I'm not an artist. The story, I don't even know how we're going to cut this together. The episode starts with my friend Steve Berger and I are on Main Street in Port Washington, New York, trying to make dumb jokes about the town of Port Washington. And then one joke about this being a giant edible, and what does that say about the housewives of Port Washington, turned into the deepest conversation you're going to have this week. So be forewarned, if you're into art, this is great. If you're here for the yucks and the jokes, skip this episode. It's a snooze fest, but it's a deep snooze fest, and it really awakened the artist in me. Let's start the show. The Tom Kelly Show! Yeah, let's wing it. You feel like winging it for a minute, Steve? Yeah. Yeah, let's come on in. We're going to wing it. Come on in. Okay. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. I'm also known as a bull in a china shop. Who are you? What type of art do you do? And I'm going to be quiet for 60 seconds. I need to learn from you here.
I'm Kevin Champeny, and I do sort of an advanced modern take on mosaics. So every piece you see in here is hand sculpted, molded, and cast in color, so nothing's painted either. So these are individual castings, individual sculptures, every single one of them. So even the candy's not real. It'll never decay. The only real thing is the Hot Wheels. And so you commonly see found artwork sort of put together to create different images, but there's no story behind it. So this was my idea to create a story. So I didn't have to explain it to anybody. I could allow you to define it. Why did I make this out of this? So there's some tension. Sometimes it's just a meta piece, like the purse or the bears. It's just a bear made out of bear. Mm-hmm. Like the Defiance piece, Defiance can be read either way. And so the original set is actually Trump and Hillary, which I did during the election, and I drove them around in a glass truck around Manhattan for a week with their speeches going back and forth every 30 seconds.
So that thing doesn't move?
This one, no.
The other one did?
Yeah, there are 8 of them.
And the lips moved?
No, I have a box that I created. It's a sound box. You turn it up with a middle finger. And so it has the speeches in there, and it just goes back. So it's very much a performance
piece. So it says something about Port Washington politics, that you can make a giant painting of Trump looking like a dick, and it'll buy. It'll sell here, and no one will complain.
And no one's firebombed the building. Yeah, it's because it allows you to look at it and go, well, is it an FU to me, to him, to us, to the system? So you're allowed to interpret that. You're allowed to bring your own feelings about it without someone having to tell you that because it's not an overtly FU piece. It wasn't designed that way. Okay. It was designed so that you could look at it and go, is this a power piece? Yeah. Is this something else? And so that's what's been interesting. People come in angry, furious, until they realize what it's made out of, until they realize what the title is. And then when they realize that they're the ones who define it, not me.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, if you had that painting in South Massapequa, there would be protests from the moms groups. There would be fire bombs from the Girl Scouts. And honestly, the local convent may run a car through your window.
There's been a little tension in town. We get phone calls still, and people saying, take that down. And it's only until they know what it's made out of.
And really, what is it made out of again?
10,000 middle fingers. That's why it's called Defiance. That's the aha moment.
You know what's funny? There is nothing more Long Island than a Trump picture made out of 10,000 middle fingers. And here's 2 more.
It's intense. It's overwhelming because it's not just one thing. Bitcoin? So this is called democratization, and those are all Bitcoins. This is called Defended, 44,500 individually cast toy soldiers. I had someone come into the gallery.
Hang on, because really to appreciate that being a toy soldier, you have to come from
so it forces you to interact with the piece. You have to go up close to see what it is and then walk away to see what the image is. Okay. So it forces you physically to be interactive and forces you conceptually to be interactive to decide what does it mean to me. You know, why is this important? Why is it interesting?
Okay.
Or maybe it's not. But I get that too.
I love this. I'd love to offer you $200 for this right now.
That's a great offer.
It's on the low side.
Just a hair.
Okay, how much is that going for?
I actually don't know the prices of a lot of these.
Wait, hold on. You created the work. You made the work, and you don't know what it's selling for.
No.
That's what it's like to be good, huh?
Wow. I said that I create, and that's all I do.
I can't wait to be so good at being a comedian that I just go to a gig and Steve books me, and I have no idea how much I'm making. I just know the rent is paid. That is awesome. That's a level of success. 250, not a penny more. And before you go, I think I saw something like this at Home Goods.
Yes.
No?
No.
You're an artist in Port Washington. What does it say about the people of Port Washington that your main piece of art in your window looks like a giant edible?
It says a lot for the community. It really does.
Actually, is that the inspiration?
It wasn't, actually. These are just meta pieces. I love the idea of a gummy bear. And honestly, the inspiration was from Ferris Bueller's. That last scene with the principal sitting in there and she hands him the gummy bear. They've been in my pocket. They're really soft, and he flings it away. And that has stuck in my head forever. And so there's just the image and the universality of gummy bears. Everyone knows what it is. Haribo doesn't own it, which I thought was fascinating also. So it's a descriptive term because they never copyrighted it in the early 1900s. So to come up with my own version and design of something that is so universal was a hell of a challenge.
So what you're saying right now, if I look at your giant gummy bear and I see an edible, it doesn't say anything about the people of Port Washington. It says something about me.
Probably.
Okay. It says what I'm craving right now. All right, there you go.
These aren't actually, these are molds of the candy?
I hand sculpt the masters. So they're not even the real candy. And part of that is so I can take it one step removed from the original. And I've sculpted candy. I sculpted like the original Imodium AD pill. Why am I losing words?
I don't know, but I'm telling you, the more you talk about your art, the more I want to poop.
I know, right? The Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, I've sculpted those for commercials. So
what was your background before this? Steve is a visual effects artist, which is funny that we bring you in here. Or that maybe if you believe in destiny and coincidences, I'm meant to. And Steve is quite an artist on his own. What did you do before this? We keep interrupting the Carfax story. Carfax.
Well, originally, right before I started doing this, like I said, I was in the aerospace industry. So I was basically a mechanic. I was building aircraft, sending stratospheric planes into the sky, playing around with carbon fiber. And that's where I met my partner, my business partner. And he came to my studio and he's like, no one's ever seen this. No one does this. If this is your passion, this is what you should be doing. If you ever want to do it professionally, let me know. And I called him 2 weeks later. I said, I'm done. And I said, let's try it. And then I worked out of my garage for quite a while, creating some of the pieces. And then CarMax called and wanted this giant piece, but I had no space for it. But this building just happened to come up for rent that day.
And you're and by big, you mean like that big? Trump big or bigger than Trump?
It was 40 feet long, 14 feet tall, 40,000 Hot Wheels.
How could you get it in and out?
It was done in 26 pieces. It was a puzzle.
So
it was taken apart.
The thin line between engineering and art.
Right. Absolutely. And everything is. I mean, it's all about perception. Even the glass isn't real. It's soft to the touch.
You know what's funny? Didn't realize that was art. I thought that was just a really ugly chair.
Yeah.
Or a artsy chair.
But it's called faux fear, you know, that perception of danger. But I have a client that has 6 of them for his dining room table. So they're comfortable to sit in.
Wait, are they? Because it looks, okay,
Yeah.
Can I? See, I'm afraid to sit on that.
No, it's like a massage chair. It has a very unique feeling to it, but yeah, it's surprisingly comfortable for what it is.
I like, you know, it's funny. Like
There's one real piece of glass, so if you find it.
Oh.
Just kidding.
No, but you know, it's funny. It's comfortable once you're in it.
Yes.
It's a little startling.
It is.
Once you sit.
And I don't recommend shorts.
Okay, for real.
It's the sensation is too intense.
Oh.
And so you need to be somewhat.
Well, let me tell you something. If you saw the amount of action I've been getting lately, a little bit of an art chair is the intensity I might need. So yeah, you wouldn't sit on this naked.
I haven't.
I mean, weirdly, how much does this chair go for?
Like I said, I don't know what they sell for.
Such an artist.
I know It's so obnoxious for me to even say, but because I never thought I'd ever live like this or have, the opportunity to do this full time. And so I was very specific about doing that in the beginning. It's like I have an idea of what I want the range to be. Just sell the work, make sure it's out there. Let me concentrate on building it.
Okay.
Well, a question, like, you have a storefront, and we come in, and we're looking for some art, but you don't know, like, what's the process now? Say, I want to buy something.
The phone numbers go straight to my business partner.
Gotcha.
Everything. Even
and
that
you
will
won't- and wait, hang on for a second. So
Yeah.
you don't take money calls, but you do allow horses' asses to just come in and wander at any point in time.
Yeah, I'm the silent, sometimes face of the company.
All right. So here's what's weird. Steve's been on it. I also have a podcast that has a nice chunk of listeners that's evolving as we're now at 5 years past the pandemic. I used to always ask, the original gimmick of my podcast was finding people in transition who transition from one crazy thing to another. I am 5 years after the pandemic, and I feel like I've been stuck and if not defined by my state of transition. For you, you took the leap because someone else pushed you.
Finally, yeah. I
Did you have the dream before this guy said, make this art?
I've been drawing and creating art since before I could speak. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do, but I've only ever done it in the background. Most of the people in this country own something that I've sculpted and will never know because I sculpted professionally for companies like Estee Lauder and Avon, Warner Brothers, and Disney anonymously. And so,
and just for people who don't know this business, I have a sort of a sense of where you're at. So like you've sculpted? Like a Bugs Bunny or a Batman statue
I
type of thing?
sculpted Tweety birds for 2 months straight once. That's all I did. Cookie jars, snow globes, like Hummels, stuff like that. And it's completely anonymous. And so I've never been out front in front of. That's why it's always just been a job. That's why I was in the aerospace industry, because it was fascinating. Well, let me see what I can do with this. I learned things in a different way.
You have a degree in what?
Art.
Okay, so you took your art degree to Aerospace.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell, just you and I shooting the breeze and accidentally making this a serious interview. I can't tell if you're an engineering genius or an art nerd. What are you both?
I've been described as both, yeah. So, I mean, that's how I got building aircraft, because it made sense to me. I worked with people who went to school for it, and I just assume everyone's lying to me. So
now, when you say building aircraft, I mean, that's such a broad term. What does that mean? You don't have to give away your clients, but what did you mean building aircraft?
So the company that I was working for was building stratospheric flying aircraft because satellites don't work really well around the equator. So the idea was to do lower flying, things that fly above aircraft but below the space, to send signals and bounce it out, because the infrastructure is nearly impossible to do in most of these areas. Like, you wouldn't go to the jungles of Brazil and try to run line. It just doesn't work. So the idea is this would offer a large percentage of the world that does not have access to the internet access.
Was this Starlink or something like Starlink?
It was similar. We worked with companies like Facebook and things like that. So there are like 6 or 7 companies that are still racing to do it. It's extremely difficult. So no one's quite cracked the nut on it. So especially doing with solar power and then battery capacity and all that, is complicated. So
okay,
that's the biggest part of it. But we got things that could just fly by itself for quite a while, and yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Okay, do you miss the? By the way, this chair's not comfortable for dinner. If you were transition, because I think Steve is going to help me repurpose this interview for 5 different platforms here. If I were suddenly transitioning from douchebag on the steps to nice guy asking you for advice, it sounded like you were kind of doing a job before being an artist, but a nice job, a great job.
Yeah, it was
a job that you really shouldn't bitch about.
Right.
Fair?
Yeah, not at all.
Okay, and then you kind of wound up in a dream, and I'm going to argue you might be more talented than me. In whatever you do, if I'm this in comedy, you might be this in art, which I don't say that too often. Usually it's for me, but for you, what advice would you give for people who are either looking to take a leap or waiting for a leap to take them? Because it sounds like the leap took you.
Yeah, it really did. And I almost wish I would have done it sooner. Everyone said
Could you have done it sooner?
Well, that's the issue. Probably not. Working in the company that I mean, to tell you how crazy this place was, imagine Tiger King meets Fire Festival. That's where I worked for 2 straight years, every single day. It was insane. So what I learned from that basically made me not afraid of anyone or anything ever again, because it was just so stressful. And so I was able to use every skill I ever had, developed and learned in one job. And I was like, all right, what's today? Fuck it, let's try it. Yeah. And that's literally what it was. And so now I do this all day, and it's like, well, it's just a dream. So it's like, I have an idea, I want to make this, I'm just going to do it. And so I now think it's like, instead of waiting for my ship to come in, I'm just going to build my own damn ship. And that's it.
And is that what happened, or did your fairy godfather find you?
That was the push. I mean, I transitioned into the job I was in because I was looking for a change, because I'd been doing, again, a lot of this behind the scenes stuff for so long, and I was just tired because I overworked myself anyway. And then being in this aerospace company was just maddening, and I was getting tired again. And I was like, I have to do this for myself someday. And having him finally go, this is it, just do it. And I was like, okay. You know, and it was the worst time. It was, and because I always thought about that. I had a second child coming. Yeah. You know, just bought a house. So all this stuff is sitting like that. I'm like, oh, what the hell?
I made the joke before, what does your wife do that you can make a living being an artist? But what does your wife do?
She's amazing. She's extremely smart. So she is a researcher. She's a research director and vice president of research in the CBC in New York. So she oversees the New York City budget. So she works for a watchdog group.
CBC.
The CBC, yeah.
What is that?
The Citizens Budget Committee.
Okay. So stupid one, just again, when we talk about some of the blessings you had to take your leap. God forbid this turned into a disaster. Someone eats one of your gummy bears and dies of toxicity and stews. You still have enough coming in.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't going to ruin your family taking the leap.
Right. No, and it was tough because I didn't take a salary for a while.
No, okay, no, it's because
to build it, because it is. It's stressful to start a business and start a company, and for us, it was very much, say us as far as my business partner, it was very important to have the art fund the company. If it can't, then it's not worth doing, and that's the point. The whole idea was I'm making art to make money. And this is what I do. You pay a doctor to fix you, someone to fix your car. You're going to pay me to make beautiful things. And so I'm very logical about what I do, not as romantic as other artists, which is why I don't know any other artists. I don't have artists as friends. I don't hang out with artists, and I never have. And so I work pretty much in my own bubble, just sort of separated from most people. And that's where I find sort of my comfort. So
I love that line about not having artists as friends. Why? You don't want to get influenced?
I went to art school, and I did not like it. I didn't like the attitudes I had. I had to pay for my college. I grew up in southern Wisconsin. I was just on the borderline of being poor. I mean, it was...
No, you're getting more interesting by the minute, Kevin. More interesting by the minute.
And so I had to pay for it myself. So I created shows during college to pay for my education, and the professors hated it. They wanted me out of the school. They're like, this is not why you make art. I said, this is why I make art. I said, This is my livelihood. I'm using my skill set. You use your skill set to teach me. So
no, because I had a career that was the comedian's parallel to yours. One, I love a couple of my comedian friends, but not really. Like, there's just, everybody's got an opinion. Mm-hmm. Whatever you're doing is wrong. And I am sure that's the energy I project out too. That I have my way of doing things. It sounds like you kind of, this is going to be I'm projecting my thought onto you, or interpreting what you said, but I was a bit of a sellout. I worked at ABC. I did warm-up work. I ghost write for FM radio morning jocks. No one will never know who I am from that. And then it fell apart during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But each time I've taken a leap, I've had a fairy godmother or godfather sort of pushing me. I'm waiting for that. I think you gave me the advice on what do you do while you're waiting for a fairy godfather or mother. And then I have one last question and I'll let you work.
You work on your craft. I mean, that's what it was. I've always sculpted. I've always painted, always drawn. I've always made art, but I've never shown it. Or I had never shown it before doing this. And so for me, it was to never stop. Make mistakes, relish the mistakes, bury myself in them and try something new. And that's why this works the way that it does, because the amount of failure it took to do this was something that I just took in myself. I was told I couldn't do so many things as a kid. I was born deaf, which is a weird thing. I couldn't hear until I was in my 20s.
So you hear me now. It's not just, you're not just lip reading.
I can hear you now. I'm 10% off of normal, but I
Okay.
still have the habits of staring at people's mouths because
But
I
aren't
did
all artists?
that.
No, there's a joke there. No, but you're 10% off of normal on hearing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was told I'd never go to college because I was too poor. I would never get married because I was too weird. I've been married now for 25 years. I have 2 children, 2 dogs, white picket fence. You know, I'm living that American life that I was told, that American dream that I was told I'd never have. And so it was always defiance for me. Defiance. And so it was, I didn't care what you told me. I was going to do it anyway. I was going to find a way. I was going to fall into it, make it. Something was going to happen.
Next question. Or 2 questions. God, is the American dream worth it? Or is it overrated as a guy who was a rebel? Now here you are. You have the white picket fence. You're an artist. You're making your craft on the main street of a rich kind of white town. Is this what you wanted? Or is this the antithesis of what that rebel kid wanted?
This is exactly what I wanted.
Okay.
I wanted to be comfortable, happy, and to be able to do what I love and basically be happy while doing it. I mean, how many people can say that? How many people go to work going, I can't wait to get to work? You know, and in those who do, I question, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, why are you happy doing that? And for me, doing it for myself, for me, it's very self-indulgent. Everything about it is, but that's the point. I mean, you know, is that not the American way? But I know that sounds awful and terrible, but I'm comfortable, I'm happy, I don't have to worry. And so I've done that enough, you know, and I've worried for so long in my life, and now I don't. And, you know, we have slow times and fast times, and it's like, well, things will work out because I can pivot, I can change. I've done awful things as jobs, so that never scares me. So it's like if this just sort of bottomed out and no one decided to buy artwork anymore, I could be a barista. I don't care.
Yeah.
I would do it. I've worked in frozen food factories and all of that, you know, in the middle of the summer in Wisconsin, you know, I've done that. So it's like a job's a job, work is work, you know, and the fact that I love doing it, well, then, I mean, I'm you know, it's a dream.
Okay, last question. You mentioned before that the job right before the big leap into art was a toxic one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you find creativity and find the strength to take a leap when you're surrounded by toxic energy?
It fuels me. I like it.
You were able to take the toxic energy and make
absolutely.
it fuel.
Yeah.
Is there a trick to that?
It's like the Incredible Hulk kind of thing, you know, when they said, well, how do you stay so calm? He said, well, the trick is I'm always angry. And that's what it was for me. I was always angry and pissed off and knowing that I was being wronged. And so all my movements and everything was about me making sure that I could get to where I needed to be, and then everyone else was in the way. And they always have been in the way. And not by, you know, it wasn't overt, it just was accidental. I worked for a family company once, and they wouldn't change anything because they were scared to, because it was a family company that they had to deal with 40, 50 people that they had hired and were responsible for, and I get that. However, it was still in my way of success. And so I have to look beyond that and go, okay, well, I still need to do what I need to do for me, you know, and I can only take things for so long, and then...
Oh, so you've been on Long Island for a bit.
Yeah, well, about nine or 10 years. So I was in Westchester when I got the call to work there, and that's why we ended up here, because this was equidistant for me to drive to Riverhead and my wife to take the train into the city. So if we had to come back in an emergency for the children, either one of us could do it in the same matter of time.
So now, I love that I'm asking these silly questions.
Where'd you go to art school? Sorry.
Yeah, Beloit College, the oldest college northwest of Chicago. It's like this small liberal arts school, southern Wisconsin, right on the border. Also the largest Native American collection outside of Europe. Yeah, I know. They
Okay.
they had a real fetish for
How
it.
did you find it?
It's in my hometown. It's the
Okay.
first time I ever heard the term townie was in college.
Yeah.
And realized that it was extraordinarily derogatory.
Is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For me it was. Because I didn't like to associate with my hometown. Because I wanted to leave. I was desperate to leave because it was just north, like I said, like 45 minutes north of Chicago.
No, and it's funny, that sort of sums up my I used to work at a couple of big TV shows, blah blah blah, as a warm-up comedian, and I kind of had this urge to get out of Long Island my whole life. So it's just funny that for me, the jokes that have been taking off for me on social media have been jokes about the very town that I'm trying to get away from, but then they love me more.
Well, it's funny. I think Port can handle it. I've never felt so comfortable in a town in my life ever. And my wife and I have moved 11 times since we've been together. And so we've been in Westchester. We've lived in most of the boroughs in New York. And this is like overtly family-centric, overtly people-centric for as like weird as people are. Because one of the first times I opened up the gallery, I had a guy walk in and he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "I live in Port." He's like, "Well, how long have you lived here?" I said, "Well, at that time I was like 6 years." He said, "Oh, you're not from Port." I said, "I've lived in New York for 25. Does that make me a New Yorker?" Because I grew up in Wisconsin. He's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe." I said, "Oh, this is a good one. Where's your mother from?" He's like, "Oh, she's from Sicily." That's interesting. I'm sixth generation Wisconsin. So if we want to have the fight of who's more American, I'm going to win. But it's pointless. You made this town so nice that I wanted to fucking be here. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And so he just sort of looked at me. He's like, "Well, you don't have any paintings of sailboats," and then he walked out. So
But that's also, but bluntly, and I almost want to put this back in the podcast. There's a difference between art. So my friend, it's the old conversation of there's a difference between hotel art
right,
and art.
right,
You seem to have art in a hotel art town.
yeah, but it's also hotel imagery. So all the imagery is very palatable. So except, well, I mean,
I'm going to politely argue now that I understand you a bit more, and maybe I'm imposing myself on you. But I see politics, I
right,
see thoughts,
yeah,
I see thoughts on commercialism, and you're right, I can make
right,
these all my own, but I'll even bring it back to the gummy bear.
right,
I thought that was, I'm going to say, with this day and age,
right,
I imposed a political opinion that may not have been there.
right.
So can you sell,
But that's the first time I've ever heard anyone describe them
bullshit,
as that.
really?
That's the first time anyone's ever described them as edibles, and that's awesome to me because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that different twist on it that, well, why do people think? So when I have the portraits of Jesus in here, that's when I really get to talk to people. So when I do Jesus out of painkillers and call it healer and just throw it back onto people, that's fascinating because religion is one of those things that I love to talk about.
So do you like talking about your art with people or not? Because you sort of gave me a big antisocial speech before.
I don't talk to anyone.
You're talking to me.
I do because you came to the door. So most people just walk by. If you're brave enough to come to the door and I hear it, then I open it up for people.
And you don't talk to buyers?
No, I don't. I don't talk to buyers or galleries. I see galleries as the enemy, and I always have, because the percentage that they take, the importance that they put on themselves. My business partner has a larger Rolodex than most galleries put together will ever have, and so that's an advantage. Is that he knows so many people, and he doesn't use it overtly every day to sell the work, and he could. He could just go through and say, "Hey, I got this artist, why don't you buy this?" But really, it's putting it places where people see it, trying to be a little bit more organic. We have, between all of our profiles, like 6 million followers on social media, so it's crazy.
But you don't travel with your work?
Personally, no. The work does travel.
Okay, no, but like using the Ferrari example, the CarMax Ferrari. You won't go with it and let the CarMax people talk to the, I mean, there's a big word. You won't let the, what's the word if I were using art terms, Florentinians, you won't let the patrons talk to the artist?
They can. It's just I have a buffer.
No.
And so Richard's my buffer, so I don't have to.
No.
Because it's complicated, especially with galleries. It's very complicated because a lot will want to impose their own things, and I've had to step in. I have a pill flag also, which is called prescribed, and I had a gallery tell people it was real. I said, "You can't do that." I said, you know what I make, and if you tell people it's real, I can either be arrested or killed for this.
Especially that one.
Yeah, I said, street value is like $20 million in painkiller. I said, you can't say dumb shit like that. And so, there are points where I have to do that and get a little bit more vocal about it, but having a team allows me not to. And so they can sort of front that, so I can just concentrate on coming up with the ideas and making the work. And I deal with so much negativity every day, and so that I'm just used to. I mean, online stuff is just insane. It's cruel.
And you read the comments.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Really? Do you?
Yeah.
I go hot and cold on it.
Every day. I'm interested.
I love them until there's one that I don't.
Yeah, I know. And
Which platform's cruelest?
YouTube. So TikTok is where we have the largest group of people, but they're younger. And so then you do Instagram, you have a sort of older, and you also get more professionals, artists, actors, they still use Instagram. So that's where the communication comes in. There's YouTube, which is newer for us, but that's where it's cruel. Because YouTube is more established, and it really was a sort of love-hate kind of thing when people put stuff up, and that still translates into, when I see things that have been posted onto other sites. On my own, it's a little bit more delicate. But when I see it on other pages, people out there who want to attack. It's like, who can hate it first best? And, but that's also fascinating to me too, because I know they have zero idea of what they're talking about. And I know that personally. So that makes it more interesting to browse social media and not be worried about what people say, because I know most people don't know what they're talking about.
So it's funny, I was completely destroyed and bullied on TikTok this year.
Oh, really?
It's a long story, but an influencer made me look like a dick. And if you were his fan, you thought I was a dick. But if you were a grown human being, you would take my side. Put that in your pocket for a minute. And I got death threats, people telling me to kill myself.
Yeah.
Really, and then a few threats to at least, prank phone. Like, they went in depth.
Wow.
Instagram, I found so fulfilling.
Right.
The people there are kind. They're not really using their real names. The occasional troll will disappear. What I find most on YouTube, I think I'm just catering to my fans on YouTube. I'm not getting outsiders. But on Facebook, what I find is, if you will send me a hate comment on Facebook, the brazenness of, Tom, you're going bald, you're a loser, and then here's an address and pictures of my kids. That's how little I care about you, buddy boy. I half respect it, and then I'm half afraid of that.
Yeah, I mean, I get death threats about the Defiance pieces all the time, because there's 8 of them out there, and they're all different. I did the gunshot one. So
really?
So the flag is all bullets, and then Trump is all middle fingers, blood coming down his face. And so I did the mugshot, again, middle fingers for the face, but the background was peaches. So that one's called "Isn't Defiance Peachy?" Just because it was Atlanta. That was my joke. That was kind of fun. But yeah, people, and it's funny who I get the death threats from. And it's the Defiance pieces for an artist. It's my sort of FU also, because people who hate him are making me famous, and those who love him will make me rich. And that's the ultimate joke for an artist. How many people get to do that? And so you get that, oh, you're a fence sitter. I said, no, that's what the art is meant to do. So it can provoke, it's ambiguously provocative, and yet it's what I do. It is my business. So why wouldn't I build that into it to make it provocative and interesting, and then to have that sort of interplay and the dichotomy between the fact that no one will talk. And so online I can have those conversations. I can talk to people when they go, oh, that's just fucking awful and this and that. And I go, well, do you understand what Defiance is? Do you understand that you get to define it? And I didn't tell you that. You brought this shit to the game, not me. I'm like, well, you put the picture up. I said, yeah, but you gave it meaning, not me. And so that's fun. And then people will have that, people who are mature enough will have that conversation. And in town especially, because I think there's a lawyer in town who keeps on calling us, telling us to take it down, which I think is just ironic. Of all people.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because then it becomes this whole free speech thing. It's like, why would you dare?
And weirdly, I understand why it's there. I don't think the other walls could support it. You might be able to support it there. but it's not prominent either. Again, I came in for gummy bears.
Right, but during the day you can't see it. At night it's lit up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And, I mean, it sings at night, but the whole gallery does, and I want because it's colorful. It's one of the most colorful things in town, and I like that because I'm still somewhat anonymous here, even though I have kids in school. People are starting to know me, and run into me. So that's.
Do you want to be known in town? Do you want fame?
Secretly, yeah. I've always wanted fame. I always wanted to be recognized for what I can do, not for what I couldn't do. That's why I hid the fact that I couldn't hear as a child. So I didn't want to be treated like a deaf kid. I wanted to be the kid who could draw. I wanted to be the talented kid. I wanted to be the kid who didn't have the family that I hated. You know, that's what that's what I wanted. You know, that's what I was desperate for. And so now to sort of see how beneficial it can be, but also being anonymous is kind of nice because that's why I like New York so much. You can walk down the street and anything you want, and no one ever has to know you. You can be the most anonymous person in the largest city in the world. And I think that's fascinating because I grew up in a small town where everyone knows you.
But here's what's interesting about your career, and I've talked about this as I'm trying to figure out where to market my art and where to get my, what do you call it under gear, get the teeth in the gear. Right. You are arguably the most famous artist in Port Washington.
No, because he's dead.
Pause. Fine. For the sake of the story, fine. You're the most famous living artist in Port Washington. But take my point for a minute. But maybe, you go down to 42nd Street, maybe you're 80th.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't even register.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay with that.
And that is my experience with New York City right now.
And this will be, a lot of this is moving to a gallery in New York only because they're allowing us to use it as a gallery, not because a gallery wanted me. And so we're shoehorning ourselves into New York because I've done shows, I've done gallery shows in New York, one or two, but none of them will touch me. They're not interested in the work, they're not interested in the idea, but along the coast they are. In areas where there are more people, where it's less, I don't even know what word to use. I don't want to say stuffy.
No, but it's different. It's different tastes.
It is. And
so real question, and I'm back to the podcast that ended an hour ago. Do you want your work? Fame is subjective. I think fame is fame is some level of being known.
Right.
And you use this line of, I want the people, maybe the people who make you rich are outside of the two big cities.
Yeah.
And you're okay with that?
I'm completely okay with that.
I love that.
Because then what it does, it affords me comfort. And so that's more important than the fame. The fame, because I always associated fame with comfort. Well, if you're famous, then good things will happen. But that's not always true. You know, and so to have the ability to be involved with, again, because I have to work with people with the discretionary income to be able to afford these. And so I know that. I'm not making work for the people. I make work for the people to see and analyze and talk about, but not to own. And I am very cognizant of that and aware of it, but that is also my purview. That is my choice. And I don't make prints of these, so you can't buy photographs of these. I don't sell them. I don't make NFTs. It's only the original pieces. And that was because that's where I wanted that work to be. That was the bucket list kind of thing. Ripley's, believe it or not, owns 2 pieces. That's a bucket.
Why?
I don't know. They like them. They have the Taylor Swift made out of cats. And then they have Marilyn Monroe made out of lipsticks.
I can tell you why they have it. Okay, that's great.
And so and that's what it is. And so that's a childhood bucket list for me, to be associated with Ripley's, believe it or not. I was able to build the Emerald City in Madame Tussauds in New York. So if you've ever been in there and
what's that made of?
The acrylic tube. These were oh God, I had to learn so much doing this. They're giant acrylic tubes, 14 feet tall, and they were wrapped with like auto wrap. And so I had to learn how to do it with clear auto wrap around clear tubes, make it light up. This thing weighed 1.5 tons, and I had like 3 weeks to do it. So it was this design sort of thing. It's like, okay, fine, I'll do it, because no one else would touch it. Like, oh, we can't do it. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll figure it out. And so to work there, while working a full-time job and going there at like midnight, working till like 7 a.m, installing a building, that's a bucket list kind of thing. Wouldn't it be cool if? And the fact that, you know, Ripley's has 2 pieces is just blowing my mind. They won't tell me where they are yet. They've only had them for a few months, but...
Do they know where they are? Believe it or not, we lost it.
Yeah, exactly. I think someone pocketed them, but
No, that's a real possibility with them. Right?
it definitely is.
Well, not a real possibility, but they have so much stuff. It says so much that they got it from you.
Yeah, and I mean, we had that happen with a piece that I did early on with Derek Jeter. We did it for the foundation, and his sister was the head of that, Jeter's sister, and it ended up in a closet for like 7 years.
Well, that's the weird thing about tangible art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does that bother you? Like you just talked about how you don't do prints. Well, there you go. This beautiful Jeter piece that's probably worth thousands of dollars now,
right.
that maybe out of my price range. But here you go. This beautiful thing you did on Jeter that may or may not make a statement about Jeter
Right.
is in a closet. There's
Right.
no prints. Does that bother you? Or does that excite you?
It's interesting because then it's exclusivity. I mean, online everything's there. You know, you have everyone has access to everything they've ever done because it's online. It'll never go away. So the fact that I can curate that to some extent, you know, and control that in certain ways is fine. So yeah, you could, you know, print it, you know, take a screenshot and print it, but it'll never be this, and I know that.
Whereas the difference between your work and mine is I'm a whore. Anybody could curate me. You can find my best stand-up sets. You can find my worst stand-up sets. You can find a picture of me with every celebrity I've ever taken one with. And frankly, my childhood pictures are all over the place.
Nice.
You know, yeah, I just feel very the opposite of exclusive. Kevin, this was a dumb joke that turned into an inspiring conversation, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Here we go.